The night was cold and the ruined city was silent. Smoke rose from broken towers and the streets were covered with dust and ash. The wind blew through shattered windows, making a low, empty sound. A single human walked alone through this place, his boots pressing on stone and glass. He carried only a small bag of supplies on his back. He knew this land was dangerous, too quiet, too dark, too dead. Every step felt heavy, but he kept moving. Humans were not welcome here, not after the long war. If anyone saw him, he might not survive the night. Still, he walked, because he was searching for something he could not name. Maybe safety, maybe hope, maybe just a reason to keep walking. Then, he stopped. Somewhere in the dark alley to his left, a sound moved. It was not wind, not stone falling, not an enemy soldier. It was a whisper, weak and thin, like a dry leaf carried on air. "Please," the voice said. "Just a warm meal. For my little sister." The human froze. His hand moved toward the weapon at his belt. His heart began to beat faster. Was this a trap? He waited, listening. The whisper came again, closer this time. "Please, I will repay you, human." Slowly the man stepped into the alley. Shadows stretched along the wall, hiding the corners. His eyes adjusted, and then he saw them. Two small figures sat against the broken wall. One was an alien girl, thin and pale. Her clothes were torn, her face tired, but her eyes still alive. Beside her, lying weak and shaking, was a smaller child, her sister. Her skin had lost its color, and her breathing was shallow. The human's breath caught in his throat. These were not soldiers, not hunters, not enemies with weapons. They were only children. The older girl was holding something in her hand. It glowed faintly in the dark, a small broken toy. She lifted it, her voice shaking but firm. "I will sell my toy to repay you, human," she whispered. Her words carried both fear and hope. She looked straight into his eyes. No lies, no tricks, only desperate truth. The man's fingers tightened on his weapon. His mind screamed at him to turn back, to walk away. Helping aliens could mean death. Food was too rare and trust was too dangerous. But his heart pulled him in another direction. He saw the small sister's chest rising and falling in weak gasps. He saw the girl's shaking hands holding that broken toy like it was the most precious thing in the world. For a moment, he remembered something, a face from the past. His own little sister, long gone. The memory stabbed his heart like a knife. His hand slowly dropped away from his weapon. Instead, he reached into his bag. He pulled out a small package of dried bread and a bottle of water. He crouched low and placed them on the ground between them. The alien girl's eyes widened in shock. She looked at him as if he had given her the stars. "Eat," he said quietly, his voice rough but not unkind. The girl shook her head. "No. First my sister," she whispered, pushing the food toward the smaller child. She broke the bread into pieces and placed them carefully in her sister's mouth. She poured water drop by drop, afraid the little one was too weak. The younger girl swallowed slowly, her chest rising a little stronger. The older sister smiled with tears in her eyes, then she looked back at the human. "Thank you, human," she whispered. Her small hands pushed the glowing toy toward him. "Take this. It is all I have. I must repay you." The man stared at the toy. It looked broken, scratched, worthless, but the way it pulsed with soft light made him curious. Something about it felt strange. He did not take it, not yet. Instead he asked, "Where are your parents?" The girl's face grew hard, her eyes looking down. "They are gone," she said simply. Her voice was steady, but behind it was pain too heavy for her age. Silence filled the alley. Only the sound of the wind and the soft eating of the weak child could be heard. The man stood, looking at the broken city around them. He knew he could not stay here. He knew carrying them would slow him down, but he also knew something else. If he walked away now, he would never forget their faces. He would never forget the whisper of the girl. "Just a warm meal for my little sister." He closed his eyes for a moment, then he made his choice. "Get up," he said, his voice low but firm. The girl looked at him, confused. "Get up, and bring your sister," he repeated. "You cannot stay here, it is not safe." The girl hugged her sister close and nodded. Her eyes glowed with a small spark of hope. Hope she thought she had lost long ago. As they stepped out of the alley, the city seemed darker. Shadows moved in the distance, watching, waiting. The man felt danger rising. He tightened the straps on his bag and glanced at the girl. She held her sister with one arm and her glowing toy with the other. The broken toy's light flickered once, and for the first time the man wondered, what exactly have I stepped into? The night grew colder, the silence deeper, but now he was not alone, and somewhere in the ruins, unseen eyes followed their every step. The story had only just begun. The night grew darker as the human led the two sisters through the ruined streets. The older alien girl walked carefully, holding her little sister close against her chest. The younger child was weak, but the warmth of food and water had given her a little strength. Her breathing was steadier now, though her eyes still half closed in exhaustion. The human said nothing. His eyes scanned every shadow, every broken wall. He knew danger lived in silence, and in a city like this, silence was never empty. The alien girl followed closely, her small feet making almost no sound. She motioned or shed. Fed like someone used to hiding, used to running, used to fear. For a long while they walked without speaking. The only sounds were the crunch of boots and the far cry of the wind. But then, the girl broke the silence. "You should not help us," she whispered, her voice trembling. Her words were soft, but they carried strange weight. "If others see, they will call you traitor. They will kill you." The human glanced at her but said nothing. The girl lowered her eyes. Her fingers tightened around the broken, glowing toy she still carried. Its dim light flickered like a heartbeat. "You gave food," she whispered again. "So I must repay you, human." Her eyes looked at him with strange fire. Not just fear, not just gratitude, but something deeper. A promise. The man stopped. He turned toward her, his face half hidden in the dark. "You don't owe me," he said quietly. But the girl shook her head with sudden force. "In my people," she said, "a debt is never left behind." Her voice was almost angry. Her eyes shone with pride that did not match her thin, weak body. She lifted the toy again, holding it like a sacred jewel. "This is mine, but I give it to you, so the bond is made." The man stared at the toy. It looked small, cracked, a child's thing, but the way she held it told him it was more than it seemed. He reached out slowly, his fingers brushing the glowing surface. The toy pulsed softly in response, like it recognized his touch. The girl gasped, but did not pull it back. Instead, she whispered, "Now you are tied to us, human." Her words were not threat, but truth. They moved again, step by step. The city around them was a grave of stone and steel. Every corner felt like a trap, every shadow like watching eyes. The human led them toward a broken shelter, an old transport station with half its roof fallen. Inside, the air smelled of dust and rust, but it was safer than they. He opened streets. He set down his bag, lit a small flame. The weak fire pushed back the dark. The sisters huddled near the warmth. The younger one rested, her small chest rising with each tired breath. The older girl sat straight, watching the human with sharp eyes. "You are strange," she said softly. "Humans do not help us. Not now, not after war." Her words were not accusing, but heavy with wonder. The man looked at the fire. His face was lined, his eyes shadowed. "I don't know why I helped," he admitted. "Maybe because I remember someone." He did not explain, and she did not ask, but the silence between them grew less heavy, less sharp. Outside, the city was alive with distant sounds, metal clattering, stones shifting, faint voices carried by the wind. The man's hand rested on his weapon. He knew others would come, scavengers, raiders, or worse. Hunters who wanted anything glowing, anything strange. The toy in the girl's hands would draw them like fire draws moths. The girl held it close to her chest. Her lips moved in a whisper only she could hear. The toy pulsed once, twice, as if answering her. The man watched with narrowed eyes. That was no simple plaything. Something about it felt alive. Something about it felt dangerous. "Sleep now," he said at last, his voice low but firm. "We move again at dawn." The girl nodded, lying beside her sister, wrapping arms around the smaller body. Her eyes stayed open, glowing faintly in the firelight. She watched the human as he sat at the entrance, guarding the night. Her mind whispered questions she could not ask. Why did this human care? Why did his presence make her feel safer than she had in years? Hours passed slowly. The fire dimmed, the air turned colder. The human sat awake, his thoughts circling. He had broken his own rules by helping them. He had tied himself to their fate with a single act of mercy, and now deep inside, he felt something dangerous, responsibility. The bond was silent but real. It'd begun the moment he gave them food, and it would not end easily. Suddenly, the girl stirred. She sat up and pointed at the toy, its light flickering faster now. "It reacts," she whispered, her voice full of fear. The man stood quickly, weapon in hand. He looked outside the shelter, his heart sharp in his chest. In the distance, shadows moved. Voices grew louder, rough and cruel. Scavengers, drawn by the light, drawn by the toy. The human's jaw tightened. The bond between them had already pulled him into danger. He looked at the girl, at the child, at the glowing toy. Then he whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." The firelight trembled, the city growled outside, and the silent bond between human and alien was about to be tested. The shelter was quiet, but the quiet did not feel safe. The fire was small now, only red embers glowing. The human sat near the entrance, his weapon ready. The alien girl held her sister close, the broken toy glowing faint in her hands. Then, footsteps, light at first, then heavier, many of them. The man's eyes narrowed, his muscles tense. He had heard these steps before. Scavengers, hunters of the weak, killers of the lost. They moved like wolves, always circling, always smelling for prey. The toy in the girl's hand pulsed again. Brighter this time. She gasped and covered it with her arms, but the glow leaked out through her thin fingers. "It calls to them," the man muttered. "They know we are here." The girl's eyes filled with fear. Her sister stirred weakly in her arms, too small, too tired to run. The human stood and pulled them back into the shadows of the shelter. "Stay behind me," he whispered, his voice sharp but calm. The girl nodded, holding her sister close. Her small body shook, but her eyes stayed fixed on him. Trust, or maybe desperation, tied her to his command. The first scavenger entered, a tall figure with me, towel strapped to his arms. His eyes glowed faint red under a cracked mask. He scanned the dark with slow steps, a knife in his hand. Behind him, more shadows moved, 5, maybe 6. Their whispers echoed like snakes. "Light. Something glows in here. Food maybe, or treasure." The human's grip tightened on his weapon. He had fought scavengers before. They were cruel, not for survival but for sport. They killed to laugh. They hunted to prove power, and now they had found prey. The man waited until the first stepped closer. Then he struck. A sharp movement, fast and silent. The scavenger fell without a sound. The girl gasped, but pressed her sister's face into her chest to hide her from the sight. But the others heard the thud. "Over there!" one shouted. Chaos erupted. Figures rushed into the shelter, weapons raised. The man fought with precision, each strike measured, each step careful, but there were too many. Blades scraped, fists swung, sparks flew in the dark. The girl clutched her sister and the toy, her heart hammered in her chest. She wanted to scream, but she bit her lip until it bled. She wanted to run, but her legs felt frozen. Then, the toy pulsed again, harder than before. It grew hot in her hands. She stared at it in shock as light spilled out. A beam of pale blue shot across the shelter wall. The scavenger stopped for a heartbeat, confused. The human used that moment. He struck hard, pushing 2 of them back. The girl realized then, the toy was not only a toy, it was something more, something powerful, something dangerous. Her hands shook as she held it tight, but a strange courage rose inside her. Her people had always said she was too weak, too small, too useless. But now, maybe she was something more. One scavenger lunged toward her, his blade raised high. The girl screamed, but she did not run. She lifted the glowing toy. The light burst out, blinding the man. He stumbled, crashing into the wall. The human turned, finishing him with one swift strike. He looked at her, surprise flashing in his eyes. "You can fight," he said. "Detain." Yet with anger but with respect, the girl's chest heaved. I only wanted to protect my sister," she whispered. Her hands shook, the toy dimming again as if tired. The man gave a short nod. "That's enough," he said. He turned back to the fight, cutting through the last scavenger who dared to step forward. Silence returned, broken only by the sisters' ragged breaths. The floor was littered with fallen bodies. The human stood over them, his chest rising with steady breaths. His arm bled from a cut, but his eyes were calm. The girl stared at him, her heart pounding. She had never seen anyone fight like that. Not with wild rage, but with control. Not with cruelty, but with purpose. "You saved us," she whispered, her voice almost lost in the quiet. The man shook his head. "No," he said. "We saved each other." He looked at the toy still glowing faint in her hands. "That thing is no child's toy," he said, his voice firm. The girl lowered her eyes. "It was a gift," she whispered, "from my father before he was gone." Her voice broke on the last word, but she forced herself to stay strong. "He said one day, it would show me the way." The man frowned, his thoughts racing. A gift, a light, a map perhaps. He had seen strange alien tech before, but this was different. It seemed alive. It seemed tied to her, and if scavengers were willing to kill for its glow, then more would come, stronger, deadlier. He looked at the sisters, two small figures in a broken world. He told himself to walk away, to leave before it became worse, but his heart refused. He saw again the memory of his own sister, her smile, her laughter, long gone now. He clenched his fist. He had lost one, but maybe he could protect these two. "Pack your things," he said at last. The girl looked at him, confused. "We are leaving," he continued. "Staying here means death." The girl nodded slowly, her eyes shining in, just with fear, but with something new, hope. Outside, the night was waiting. Shadows moved on rooftops. Whispers followed in alleys. Danger was not gone, only growing. The man tightened the straps on his bag. The girl held her sister and the glowing toy, and together, they stepped back into the city of ruin. The bond between them had faced its first test, and it had survived. But greater shadows were already closing in. The city was quiet again, but the silence felt different now. It was not the silence of peace, but the silence of eyes watching from the dark. The human led the way, his steps steady, his weapon still in his hand. Behind him, the alien girl carried her sister, and in her small hands the toy still glowed faint. They moved through the broken streets until they found shelter in a ruined library. Books were scattered on the ground, pages eaten by time, dust covered every surface, but the walls still stood. It was safer than the open roads for now. The human pushed aside fallen shelves to clear a small space. "Rest here," he said, his voice low. The girl nodded, laying her sister gently on the floor. The child was breathing, weak but steady. The girl stroked her hair, whispering softly in her own language. Words the human could not understand, but the tone was clear. Comfort, love, promise. Then the toy flickered again, brighter than before. The man's eyes narrowed. He sat across from the girl, his gaze fixed on the object in her hands. "That thing," he said slowly. "It is not a toy, is it?" The girl looked down at it, her fingers trembling. Her voice was almost a whisper. "My father gave it to me, before he left for the war." She paused, her throat tight. "He said one day, it would show me the way. But I did not understand." The human leaned closer. "What way?" he asked. The girl shook her head. "I do not know," she said, her eyes wet with memory. "But sometimes it speaks to me, not in words, but in light." As if answering her, the toy pulsed once, then again. The surface cracked open slightly, thin lines glowing blue across its shell. The girl gasped. The man reached for it, but she held it tighter. "It responds to me," she whispered. Then the toy released a beam of pale light spreading across the floor. Dust lifted in the air, and the light formed a shape. It was a map, a three-dimensional map glowing in the empty air. Ruined cities, broken lands, mountains torn by fire, and far in the distance, a small point of light blinking slowly. The girl stared in awe. Her voice broke the silence. "That place. It is where my father said we would be safe." The man's jaw tightened. Safe zones were only stories now. Places people spoke of but never found. Yet here it was, marked in light by the toy. His eyes narrowed. "If this is true, others will hunt for it," he said. Scavengers were only the beginning. The girl hugged the toy closer to her chest. "It belongs to my family," she said firmly. "I will not give it to them." Her small voice was filled with fire. The human studied her. She was young, fragile, yet her spirit was unbroken. A spark of strength in a broken world. The map flickered again, and for a moment the light revealed more. Strange symbols, alien writing across the edges. The man could not read it, but the girl's eyes widened. "It is old," she whispered. "Older than my people. Maybe older than yours." Her words carried awe and fear together. The light faded, the toy dimmed. Silence filled the library again, heavy and deep. The man leaned back, his mind racing. If the toy held ancient knowledge, if it truly led to a safe place, then the sisters were more than refugees. They were keys to something greater. He looked at the girl. "You understand what this means?" he asked. Her lips trembled, but she nodded. "It means we cannot stop," she said softly. "My sister must live, and I must protect this." She held the toy close, her eyes meeting his. "And you, human, why do you stay with us?" The man was silent for a long time. His eyes were fixed on the dying fire. "I told myself I would walk away," he said at last. "But when I saw you holding her, I remembered someone. He paused, his voice rough. My little sister. Long ago. The girl's eyes softened. She did not ask more, but she understood enough. Outside, the wind howled through broken windows. The city groaned like a dying beast. The man stood, scanning the night. We leave at first light, he said. Every step we take will draw more danger. The girl nodded, but her heart beat fast. The map had shown her hope, but also fear. The toy was no longer just a memory of her father. It was a burden, a promise, a weapon, and now it tied her to the human beside her. The little sister stirred in her sleep, her small hand reaching out. The girl caught it and held it tight. She whispered softly, "We will find safety, I promise." The toy pulsed once more, as if listening. Its faint light reflected in the human's sharp eyes. He knew they were marked now, hunted. The scavengers had been only shadows of what would come. Somewhere far away, in the deep ruins, another group saw the same light on their scanners. Voices hissed in the dark. "The signal is awake again," one said. "Then we follow it," another answered. "The one who carries it will not escape." And in the ruined library, unaware of the hunters closing in, the human and the alien girl sat in silence, bound by chance, by debt, by memory, and by the secret of the toy that glowed softly in her hands, the toy that promised safety, but also promised war. The night stretched long, and when dawn came, their journey toward the unknown would begin. The first light of dawn slipped into the ruined library. Dust floated in the golden beams, silent and slow. The human stood at the entrance, his weapon in hand, watching the streets. The alien girl held her sister. Close, the toy glowing faintly in her lap. They had not slept much. Every sound in the night had made them tense. Every shadow felt like eyes waiting. Now the city was waking, and danger would move with it. The human turned, his voice low. "We leave now," he said. The girl nodded, lifting her sister onto her back. The child was weak but awake, her small arms around her sister's shoulders. The toy flickered, as if sensing the urgency. They stepped out into the morning. The streets stretched long and broken, filled with silence and echoes. The human led the way, his steps quick but careful. The girl followed, clutching her sister and the toy. Every corner made her heart pound. Every rooftop felt like it was watching. Hours passed, the sun climbed higher. The city gave way to the wastelands, hills of sand and stone, towers of rusted metal. The air was dry, the wind sharp. It felt empty, but the human knew better. Nothing was ever empty. Then he heard it. The low growl of engines in the distance. Dust rose on the horizon, moving fast. His jaw tightened. "They are following," he said. The girl's eyes widened. "Scavengers?" she whispered. The human shook his head. "No. Worse." Figures appeared on the ridge behind them, armored riders on machines that roared like beasts. Their eyes glowed red through helmets, their weapons heavy. Hunters, not scavengers, trained, organized, relentless. They had caught the signal of the toy, and they would not stop. "Run," the human said sharply. He grabbed the girl's arm, pulling her forward. They moved fast across the wasteland, their feet pounding the dry earth. The riders gave chase, engines screaming. The ground shook under their weight. The little sister cried weakly, clutching tighter. The girl's breath came fast, but she did not stop. The human fired behind him, short bursts to slow the hunters. One rider swerved, another fell. But more kept coming. The air filled with dust, heat, and the sound of war. The girl stumbled but kept moving. Her heart screamed with fear, not for herself, but for the small weight on her back. And for the toy that seemed to shine brighter with every step. The hunters shouted, their voices cruel. "Stop running! Give us the light and we will spare you." Lies, the human thought. He knew their kind. They would kill, no matter what was given. He led the sisters toward an old bridge, half collapsed. Below it was a canyon filled with jagged stone. The hunters closed in, their engines louder. The girl's legs shook, her chest burned, but she kept running, the toy in her hands glowing like fire. As they reached the broken bridge, the human shouted, "Down there!" He pushed aside rubble to reveal a hidden path under the structure. The girl climbed down carefully, carrying her sister. The human stayed above, firing at the hunters. Bullets sparked against stone. Engines roared closer. The man's face was hard, his eyes cold. He fought like someone with nothing left to lose. The girl reached the bottom, her sister safe in her arms. She looked up at the human, her heart pounding. "You will die," she cried. "Come down!" But he only shouted back, "Keep moving, protect her, protect the toy." The hunters swarmed the bridge, circling like wolves. The man fought fiercely, striking with precision, but there were too many. One rider charged, smashing the stone under his feet. The bridge shook, cracks spreading across its surface. The human leapt down just as the bridge collapsed. Dust and stone rained around them. The hunters shouted in rage, cut off by the fall. The girl gasped in relief, but the human grabbed her arm. "No time," he said. "They will find another way." They ran through the canyon, shadows stretching long on the walls. The toy pulsed brighter, guiding them forward. It felt almost alive, as if showing the path. The girl's legs trembled, her breath heavy, but the fire in her eyes did not fade. Her sister's small voice whispered in her ear, "Don't stop, please." "He don't stop." And she did not. They reached a narrow cave hidden in the rocks. The man pushed them inside, covering the entrance with stone. Darkness surrounded them, broken only by the toy's glow. The girl sank to her knees, her chest rising and falling fast. Her sister rested against her shoulder, half asleep. The human stood at the entrance, silent, his weapon ready. In the cave's glow, the toy flickered again. Lines of light stretched across the wall, forming strange shapes. Another piece of the map. The girl stared at it, her voice trembling. "It shows us the way. It wants us to keep going." The man nodded slowly. His face was tired, his arm bleeding, but his eyes stayed sharp. He looked at the sisters, at the toy, at the glowing path, and he whispered to himself, "This chase will not end, not until we reach the end of that map." Outside, faint echoes of engines rumbled again. The hunters had not given up. The wasteland carried their fury closer. The chase was only beginning, and the bond between human and alien would be tested again and again. The cave was dark, lit only by the faint glow of the toy. The air was heavy, carrying the smell of dust and stone. The human sat near the entrance, silent and watchful. The alien girl held her sister close, whispering soft words to keep her calm. For a moment, it felt safe. The hunters' engines were distant now, only echoes carried by the wind. But the man knew better. Safety never lasted. Sooner or later, they would find another path, and the chase would begin again. The girl looked at the glowing toy. Lines of light stretched across the wall, forming a new part of the map. Her eyes widened. "It shows us more," she whispered. The human studied it, his jaw tight. The mark glowed in the far distance, a place hidden deep in the wasteland. If the toy was right, that was their destination. But the road ahead was long, and more so on. The dangers greater. The little sister stirred in her sleep. Her small hand reached out, touching the toy. The light flickered in response, softer, almost gentle. The older girl gasped. "It knows her too," she whispered. The human frowned. "Or it marks her," he said flatly. His voice carried no comfort, only truth. Hours passed. The cave held them in silence. But silence was never empty. It was heavy with thoughts. The human's eyes stayed on the toy. He knew things like that never came without a price. Power always drew blood, and whoever hunted them would not stop until they had it. The girl felt his gaze. "You don't trust me," she said quietly. Her voice shook, but she forced herself to meet his eyes. The man said nothing. Finally, he answered, "I don't trust anyone." The words cut deep, but they were honest. The girl lowered her eyes, her hands clutching the toy tighter. "Then why do you stay?" she whispered. The man did not reply. Instead, he turned away, his silence heavier than words. That night, while the sisters slept, the man stayed awake, but he was not alone. From the canyon above, shadows moved, silent as hunters. One figure dropped quietly into the cave, a blade in hand. The man turned instantly, weapon raised. The clash was sudden, sharp steel against steel. The sisters woke in terror, the girl pulling her sister behind her. The toy flared bright, casting light across the cave. The intruder stepped back, his mask cracked, his voice rough. "You should not protect them, human," he hissed. "They are bait, nothing more." The man's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" he demanded. The intruder sneered. "That light leads to power, not safety." He pointed at the girl. "And she is only carrying what others will kill for." The girl trembled, her arms tightening around the toy. "You lie," she whispered, her voice breaking. The intruder laughed coldly. "Ask him," he said, nodding at the human. "Ask him if he truly trusts you." The girl looked at the man, her eyes wide, her lips trembled. "Is it true?" she whispered. The man stood still, his weapon ready, his face unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "I don't know what's true anymore." The words felt like stone crashing into her chest. The intruder saw the weakness and lunged. The man blocked, striking back hard. The fight was brutal in the narrow cave, every strike echoing against stone. At last, the intruder fell, his mask breaking, his body still. The cave was silent again, but the silence was poisoned. The girl held her sister, her eyes locked on the man, her voice shook. "You don't believe me," she whispered. "You think I am a danger." The man looked at her, his face tired, his voice rough. "I believe you want to protect your sister," he said. "But that toy, it may destroy you both." Tears burned in her eyes, but she held them back. "I cannot give it up," she said firmly. "It is my father's gift, my sister's hope, my promise." Her voice grew stronger. "If I must carry danger, then I will." The man stared at her for a long time. He saw her thin arms trembling, her eyes filled with fire. She was small, fragile, but her will was stronger than steel. At last he nodded. "Then I will carry danger with you," he said. His voice was quiet, but the weight of his words was heavy. The girl blinked in shock. Her lips parted, but no words came. She had expected rejection, maybe abandonment, but not this, not trust, even when he claimed he had none. Outside, the hunters' voices grew closer again. The engines rumbled through the canyon. The man tightened the straps on his pack. He looked at the sisters. "We move before dawn," he said. "They are closing in, and the toy is leading them as much as it leads us." The girl stood, her sister clinging to her back. The toy glowed faint in her hands. She looked at the man, her voice firm. "Then we will walk together, until the end." The man nodded, his eyes sharp, but in his chest, a heavy thought lingered. Trust was not free, and every step forward carried a price. The toy promised hope, but also destruction. And he wondered which one would come first. The night stretched long, the canyon echoed with the hunt, and the bond between them was no longer just survival. It was trust tested by fire, a trust that might save them or break them. The dawn came red and heavy, the sky burned with smoke and dust, as if the world itself was warning them. The human led the way across the wasteland, his eyes sharp, his weapon ready. Behind him, the alien girl carried her sister, the glowing toy pressed close to her chest. They had walked for days, chased by shadows. Every step forward had cost blood, pain, and fear. But the map inside the toy kept leading them, and now, the light pointed to a mountain of black stone in the distance. The girl stared at it with both hope and dread. "This is it," she whispered. "My father said the safe place would be here." The human said nothing. His eyes scanned the horizon. He knew they were not alone. The hunters had followed every step, and they would not stop now, not at the edge of their prize. As they climbed the mountain path, the toy pulsed faster. It was almost alive, almost eager. The girl held it tighter, her breath quick. Her sister clung weakly to her back, whispering, "Almost safe, almost safe." At the top, they found a gate hidden in the rock, ancient and strange, carved with symbols neither human nor alien. The toy glowed brighter, lines of light running across the gate. The stone shifted, groaning, and the gate opened. A dark passage stretched inside, cold air rushing out like the breath of time. The girl gasped, her eyes wide with awe. The man stepped carefully, every sense alert. They entered, and the gate closed behind them. The sound echoed like a fina, or drumbeat. Inside, the walls glowed faint with the toy's light. They walked down the long tunnel until it opened into a great chamber. The chamber was filled with strange machines, silent, waiting, covered in dust, but still alive with faint energy. In the center was a pedestal, shaped to hold the toy. The girl's breath caught, her father's words echoed in her mind. "One day, it will show you the way." But before she could step forward, the chamber shook. The sound of engines and boots thundered behind them. The hunters had arrived. The gate burst open, figures pouring inside, weapons raised. Their leader stepped forward, tall and armored, his mask glowing red. "Give it to us," he commanded, his voice cruel and cold. "That toy does not belong to you. It belongs to power." The girl clutched it to her chest. "No," she whispered, her voice trembling but firm. "It belongs to hope." The hunters laughed, their weapons clicking. The human stepped in front of her, his weapon ready. "If you want it," he growled, "you'll have to go through me." The fight exploded. Gunfire, steel, screams echoing in the chamber. The human fought like a storm, striking with fury and precision. But the hunters were many, endless. He bled, his body slowing, but his will unbroken. The girl cried out, torn between fear and courage. Her sister clung to her, whispering, "Don't let go." The toy burned in her hands, glowing brighter. It pulsed with a voice she could not hear but could feel. It called to her, not for power, but for choice. The leader of the hunters struck the man down. The human fell to his knees, blood on his lips. But still he raised his weapon. Still he stood between the hunters and the sisters. The girl screamed, "Stop! Leave him!" The leader sneered, Choose, little one, he said. Give us the toy, and we let him live. Keep it, and he dies here. The chamber froze, the only sound the crackle of the toy's light. The girl's heart pounded, tears burning her eyes. Her hands shook as she looked at the human. He met her gaze, his voice rough but steady. Don't give it to them, he whispered. Don't ever give it to them. Her chest broke with pain. She wanted to save him. She wanted to save her sister, but the toy's light grew stronger. It filled the chamber, humming, alive. It was waiting for her choice. She stepped forward, her voice steady, though her tears fell. I will not give it to you, she said. The leader snarled, raising his blade. But before he could strike, she lifted the toy high. Its light burst, blinding, burning, filling every corner. The chamber shook like thunder. Machines roared awake, walls glowing with ancient power. The hunters screamed as the light swallowed them, their bodies thrown back, their weapons shattered. The leader reached for her, but the light consumed him. And then, silence. The girl stood trembling, the toy dim in her hands. The hunters were gone, burned away by the light. The machine stood alive, glowing softly. The human lay on the ground, weak but breathing. She rushed to him, kneeling by his side. Tears fell on his face as she whispered, "You are safe. We are safe." He looked at her, his eyes heavy but alive. "You chose well," he whispered. "You chose hope." Her sister hugged her tightly. The toy flickered one last time, not as a weapon, not as a map, but as a light of peace. The girl held it close, whispering softly, "I will repay you, human. Not with toys, not with promises, but with my life." The chamber glowed around them, safe at last, but forever changed. The girl had made her choice, and the bond between human and alien was no longer debt, no longer survival. It was family, and in a world of ruin, that was the greatest power of all.